right, we are back in the test kitchen of Texas Microfarms, aka Sexy Beast. And today we are going to do some sauerkraut. I have a cabbage in front of me, pretty nice cabbage. I did want to show everybody, back here we have our sourdough starter, and we dried that. We're going to bag this up. So we have some sourdough starter that we can label. And then up here, we have an actual piece of the sourdough. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? It's really tasty. It was pretty hard to cut. You know, it's sourdough, so we'll be making some more sourdough. Probably tomorrow we're gonna try and make a pure white bread sourdough. See how that goes. So we've got the starter on the side already. This morning I actually pulled out a kombucha that I had jarred and drank a big giant kombucha booger. Which is not, it's not a booger, it's actually a SCOBY. But that's kind of been freaking my friend out today, because it's like, what in the world is that thing? It looks just like a booger in a jar. So, all right, so let's get this party started. We have our cabbage here, and notice how it has these very large leaves on the outside. This has not been washed. It's recommended that you don't wash it. Try and buy organic cabbage. But what I am going to do is I'm going to break these leaves off. We've got our salt here, and we have our jars that we're going to stuff it into. But first thing I'm going to do is take those really large leaves off. I'm going to set those aside. These can be used, steamed, briefly cleaned off, steam them. And then we can make cabbage rolls with them, which is one of my favorite things to eat because they're so delicious. But once I get this thing with the giant leaves off, we've got our cabbage in the center. Kind of looks like that. That's exactly what it looks like. It doesn't kind of look like that. It looks exactly like that. Then we are going to cut it into quarters. Again, I'm using my giant knife because cutting a cabbage is really very difficult. And I don't want to cut any of my fingers while I'm doing this. It's becoming very, it's actually pretty difficult. Yeah. From a different angle. There we go. Let's get cut it through a little bit better. Again, trying not to cut off any of my fingers while I do this, because it is actually very hard to cut a cabbage. And the greener that it is, there we go, probably the harder it is to cut. So once you get it cut, you can look at the inside. This one doesn't have very much of a heart, which is nice. This right here, usually the cabbage heart runs all the way through. So this is probably a fairly green cabbage. It's nice though, and I don't mind. I like to eat the heart. It's really delicious, but I don't like putting the heart inside of the sauerkraut if I can avoid it. So I'm gonna cut the bottom piece off. All right. That looks good. See? I cut this piece out. I might cut a little bit more out just to get it fresh. And then I think I'm going to cut these again into halves. And then we're going to run it, well, no, we're going to have to run it through, let's just do it this way. We're going to cut it in pieces that we can run through the food processor. That's going to be very helpful for us. Woo! Let's not knock all the jars off either. Breaking jars has been a thing in the house these past few days. All right. definitely working, but we don't want it jumping around like that. So what I would recommend is putting down, I wonder if it's not in there right. It might not be in there right. Let's just check it. Because it shouldn't jump like that. Should be fairly secure. But what we'll do is to make sure, come on, you. There we go. Give it a little cushion. Let's put a towel on it. Put a towel underneath of it. These are the things that happen in our test kitchen. Ran that thing a few seconds ago and it was smooth as silk. Then I took out a piece that was stuck in the bottom and it's like, okay, now you're not smooth as silk. It doesn't matter. It's a test kitchen. Let's try it again. There we go. That's much better. All right. So we will take this out. We're gonna run the cabbage through here. And we've got the presser here. Woo! I'm doing rather thin slices. Whoa. At the moment, it's getting stuck in there. It's okay. Let's cut another piece up to run it through. Has to fit into the chute, otherwise it's not going to do nothing. So let's just do this. There we go. This might have a tough time going through. Cabbage, so I'd see it pop it out, right? That'll prevent that from happening. Alright. That's that side. Cut the part off on the other side. Cut it into pieces again. Oops. Probably wasn't necessary to have the pan there. I just didn't know whether we were going to making a mess on top. Woo. Again, put the chute in so it's not popping out. Good. In there. That's quite a bit already. Let's empty this out now. Quite a lot in there just already. That's fine. I already washed my hands, so we're just going to toss it into this big bowl on the side. Put that out. We actually are going to get some caraway. Put a little caraway in one of them. Okay, that's nice. Look at how nice that came out. I pick through here, pick out any of the really large pieces, because I want this one to be fairly fine. That looks great. Okay. Put this back on here. Whew. This back on here. This back in, make sure there's no sauerkraut in the way or the cabbage in the way. Pop the lid back on. There we go. And then we'll just keep on keeping on with it. Will that one fit in? Yep, it sure will. Okay. Okay. We're getting down to the other half of the cabbage. Toss all these extra leaves in there. Those are the bigger ones. If there's any extra leaves over here, pieces of the core that I don't really want in there. Man, this is looking sexy. Yeah, okay. Now let's work on the other half of the cabbage. Just gonna slice it in pieces, start stuffing it in. Okay. There we go. I've had this food processor almost as long as I can remember. It's a Wolfgang Puck food processor that they don't even offer anymore. I would get another one, but why? I mean, this thing has been used so many times. It does just the perfect thing I need it to do every single time, including if I want to make, I have a thing that we can make mayonnaise with, which is pretty cool. Making your own mayonnaise. I love mayonnaise. It's like my favorite thing to eat. Okay, let's just do this. Quite a bit. A lot. Okay. Throw the green one side in. Run that through. Come on. Piece off. That is a very, when I say it's a green cabbage, it actually is a green cabbage. It's known as a green cabbage. But this cabbage is a little greener than normal, which means that they probably pulled it out of the field early for some reason. It's organic, so, but crops are like that, you know, when you've got an opportunity to pull it from the field, you got to pull it. That's just the way it is. And this one was not quite right. Or maybe it was and it just never formed a proper core in the center. So it doesn't matter. It is going to be perfect. And the reason why we don't wash them, you're going to buy organic cabbage and you're not going to wash it, is because it's organic, first of all. And then the other half of it is that as it's growing, the layers of it are forming yeast inside of each of the layer, and that is kind of what we want to have on it to help start with the fermentation. I mean, we're going to use salt. That's obviously, salt is what causes the fermentation. But having that yeast in between all the leaves is quite important to fermenting foods. You know, that's what the fermentation process is all about, is the yeast. Okay, so we have another piece of green that came off of there. We don't really want that one in there, but we want everything that's in this bowl inside of this bowl. Now it's really full. There's plenty in there. It's going to fill those jars up quite easily. Okay. Thing with food processors is that they come with safety features so that you don't chop your fingers off. If you notice, okay, so it just locked. If I had this open like that, nothing happens. I lock it, now it's ready to go. We got one more piece to do. So let's do that all at one time. Woo! It comes with a plunger, so you can plunge things down into it instead of sticking your fingers down there, because you do not want your fingers down there. It'll cut them off. That's why it has safety features, so you don't chop your fingers off. Even working with sharp knives is difficult, but you have to have a sharp knife in the kitchen. If your knives aren't sharp, get a steel and sharpen them yourself. Because if you have a dull knife, eventually you will cut your fingers off. Especially when we were working with that cabbage. Did you see how hard that cabbage was to cut it? Just imagine if I was cutting it with a dull knife, like a butter knife or something like that, which is not meant, I mean, a butter knife is meant to cut butter. but it's pretty soft. Okay. This I think is a 19-inch knife. Might be 21. It's pretty big. Okay, we're gonna get rid of all of our things that we have to wash up later. We got little pieces of cabbage going all over. If I want, I can take the little pieces of cabbage and chop it, put it into the mix, clean all of this up. It can all go in there. And we're gonna get this off of here. Little pieces of cabbage everywhere. Doesn't matter. Just toss it all in. Then, that is the end of that. There we go. Now I'm gonna I'm gonna take the food processor off so we can do the last part. Okay. Done with the knife, it can go away. Food processor can move off onto the chair so we can see what we're doing now. Pick up any pieces of cabbage that are laying around. These were the cores that we cut out of them. So we could eat these, salt them up, eat them. They'll be delicious. We could chop them, fry them, whatever you want to do. They're core though. And because they're core, they are very tough. All right. Okay, everything is in there. Okay. Now, what we have here is the cabbage. Just toss this off onto the side. It's not making a big enough mess to matter. Okay, so now we've got all of our cabbage. It's very shredded, looks great. In this bowl here, I pre-measured 2 tablespoons of salt. So I'm gonna pour some of it over it. That's gonna be fine. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start scrunching this cabbage up. And what the salt is gonna do, and as I'm scrunching it, I can find bigger pieces that I want broken up. Break that up. I'm gonna flip it, and I'm gonna really very well scrunch this all up. Okay, use your muscles. You got muscles, that's what they're there for. This is a very good way of getting out your frustrations. You know, my cat died. And that's upsetting me still, but that was 7 days ago, so it's not, you know, I have to heal. He had to go into the afterlife without me, and it was always going to happen, so I have to just realize that. Okay, now I'm going to do another half of it. Do the same thing. What we're doing is when we mix the salts in, we are drawing out the water inside of the cabbage. And that's the whole point, is that we get all of this water drawing out. And then once it's all massaged in, I can feel it. It's getting softer. The water is being drawn out of it. And we're massaging it up, so it's kind of breaking it down and getting more water out. Okay, that seems to be good. I think I've got a couple of bigger pieces that I might want to cut, but I can just tear them up. Okay, look how much is on my hands now. Okay, that's all good old salted cabbage juice. It's not fermented yet. I look like a shaggy dog, don't I? Huh. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, we're going to take these jars. That's why I had that pan there, because this does get kind of messy. We're just going to shove this into these jars. Much as we want. No, lying. This is a fermentation. This is fermented. So there's a couple of tricks we want to make sure that we pay attention to. One of those tricks one of those tricks is not to fill the jar too high. Okay? The reason for that is you're packing this stuff in here. That's fair. We might actually be able to get all of this cabbage into one jar. Maybe, who knows? One cabbage per jar seems pretty excessive. But either way, when this gets on the counter, we're gonna close this jar. We're not gonna tighten it. We're just gonna put the top of it on. Okay? Look how much is in there? Quite a bit. I think we'll be able to get this whole cabbage into one jar. That would be perfect. One cabbage, one jar, makes sense to me. Sounds like something my grandma would do. I am a grandma, so I get to do that. The bowl has gotten bowed. That's the sound of the bowl popping. Crazy, this crazy bowl. It's the best bowl in the house for doing this kind of thing because definitely has enough room in it. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to go over here now. We've got an extra jar. We can do that later. I'm going to do two. I'm just not doing two on film. I'm going to do this one on film and that second one when I'm done with this one. Okay. Oh, Lord. Such a pain to get stuff into the jar neatly. That's just me, though. I'm a weird cook. I'm just learning to actually make get my hands dirty because I just don't. I've got a weird thing about getting my hands dirty. But the fact of the matter is it does not matter. You can clean up your hands just as easily as doing your laundry, you know? Okay. We're definitely gonna get look at how much juice is coming out now on the side. That's what we want. That's exactly what we want, all that juice. And you need to have this just packed down. Pack that down as possible. Some people will put stones. I actually have stones that we can fit in there to hold it down. And I think we'll go get them because we could put them in a bag and just smash them into the top and it'll hold all this sauerkraut underwater. So let's go get our stones out. Once we get that all cleaned up. All right, that is wonderful. That is going to be delicious. I'm trying to push it down so that it's all down. Okay. The stones that I have, I bought them years ago. I bought them at Home Depot, and they're just, I picked them out myself. They're stones of various sizes. I boiled them, make sure that they were clean. But these days, it's just as easy to put them in a bag and stuff them down there. So let's find our stones. Here's the rocks. Some people will put this bag in just like this. Stick it in there. Some people just put the stones straight in there. You can do that. Just push them down. That'll be fine. These were boiled ones when we made them and then washed just like they're family members. They really are. Just, oops, like family members. I should just fill this whole thing full. Oops, lost one of my earpieces. Oh, Lord. Whoever told me I was going to be a TV chef, it just, me, that's who, because I watch so many chef shows. That's it, I'm just a chefy person. Okay, once we've got all the rocks in there, push these down as much as we want. Pull all of this off the side. Now you can see it, right? Here, let's move this out of the way. You can see how all that cabbage is underneath of the water, pretty much. So once the process begins, it's gonna take about 3 days. We'll check on it every day. I could put a few more stones in there. I have plenty of them in here. There we go. Push it down. Okay. Look at how much water is in there now. That looks fabulous. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab the lid, okay? We're gonna put the lid on. We are not gonna tighten that lid down. You tighten that lid down tightly, you're creating a bomb, and it will bomb on you. What we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to check, because as the fermentation forms, it is going to climb up here. It's already starting to bubble a little bit, but it's gonna climb up here, and if we don't have this inside of a bowl or something, we're gonna end up with sauerkraut juice all over. So let's go and get a bowl. Doesn't have to be a giant bowl. That's good size for a bowl. Then we can set this on the counter anywhere in the kitchen. We're not gonna put it in the refrigerator. We're not gonna keep it out in the garage where it's very cold right now. It's just gonna stay at room temperature until it ferments, and we'll check on it every day. So there you go. There's your sauerkraut, not sourdough, your sauerkraut making lesson. Thank you. This is Heather Hill. That's right, let's do an exit. This is Heather Hill. I'm with Texas Microfarms, also known as the Sexy Beast Caterer. Thank you for your help.